The rain came down in silver sheets that evening, as if the sky itself was weeping for all that had been lost. A sleek black car rolled slowly up the quiet lane that led to a small countryside house, its headlights cutting through the mist. Inside, a man in his late 30s gripped the steering wheel with trembling hands. His name was Adrian Cole, once a self-made millionaire, now a man haunted by the one thing money could never buy back: love. For 5 long years, he had lived surrounded by wealth, luxury, and success, yet he could never silence the echo of the woman's laughter that used to fill his home. Her name was Claire, and tonight, for reasons he barely understood himself, he was going back to see her. If you believe in kindness, forgiveness, and second chances, then please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Speaks. Your support helps us share more stories that touch hearts and remind the world that compassion still matters. The wipers squeaked rhythmically as Adrian parked in front of the small cottage. The sight hit him harder than he expected. The house looked tired, its paint faded, the garden overgrown, and yet there was something painfully familiar about it. This was where he had once promised forever. He stepped out, feeling the cold drizzle soak his expensive coat, but he didn't care. Each step up the path felt like walking through years of regret. When he reached the door, he hesitated. His reflection in the rain-specked glass looked like a stranger, polished suit, confident posture but hollow eyes. With a trembling breath, he raised his hand and knocked. Inside, Claire sat curled up on an old armchair, a blanket around her shoulders and a mug of tea in her hands. Her brown hair, once glossy and full of life, now fell loosely around her tired face. The sound of the knock made her heart skip, a sound that had once meant love, warmth, home. She froze for a moment, unsure if she'd imagined it. But then it came again, firmer this time. When she opened the door, her breath caught. Standing there, drenched in rain and silence, was the man who had once promised her the world and then left it behind without looking back. The first few seconds stretched painfully. They said nothing. Their eyes did all the talking. She saw guilt, longing, and fear in his gaze. He saw pain, disappointment, and strength in hers. For a moment, it was like time had folded in on itself, bringing them back to the night everything had shattered. He whispered her name softly, as though afraid it would break the spell. Claire. She almost closed the door. But something stopped her, maybe the tiredness in his voice, maybe the way his hand trembled. Against her better judgment, she stepped aside. He entered quietly, removing his shoes like he used to, his eyes scanning the room filled with faint reminders of their past. The framed photographs, the worn sofa, the scent of her perfume still lingering. Adrian had left 5 years ago when his company took off and life became a blur of meetings, flights, and fame. He told himself it was for their future, that he would come back once he had made it. But the truth was uglier. He had started losing himself in the world's applause and forgot the sound of her heartbeat beside him. Claire had begged him to slow down, to remember that love wasn't something you could schedule. But he didn't listen. When she walked away, he let her go, thinking he had time to fix things later. He was wrong. Now, as he stood before her, he saw what success had cost him. She looked fragile, thinner than before, yet there was a quiet strength in her that took his breath away. She offered him a towel without a word, then sat back down, keeping her distance. The firelight flickered between them, illuminating the ghosts of their past. Adrian began to speak slowly, the way a man does when every word feels like an apology. He told her about the last 5 years, the awards, the accolades, the sleepless nights, the moments he thought of calling her, but couldn't bear to hear silence on the other end. He confessed how empty his mansion felt, how every dinner tasted bland, how every success only reminded him of who wasn't there to share it. Claire listened quietly, her eyes fixed on the flames. Her heart ached, but she had learned to protect it. Life after Adrian hadn't been easy. She had worked 2 jobs to keep the house, learned to live with less, and discovered a kind of strength she never knew she had. She had tried to move on, but some scars never truly fade. They just learn to live quietly beneath the skin. When he finished speaking, the room fell silent. The rain had softened to a drizzle. Adrian reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small, worn envelope. He handed it to her gently. Inside was a photograph. The two of them, smiling under a cherry blossom tree, taken the day before he left. Behind it, a folded letter. She hesitated before opening it. The handwriting was his, familiar, yet trembling. In it, he had written not apologies, but memories. Every moment he remembered vividly. The first time they danced barefoot in the kitchen, the night she stayed awake helping him finish a project, the morning she told him she was proud of him. And at the end of the letter, one line stood out like a heartbeat. "I forgot how to listen, Claire, but I never stopped hearing your voice." Her fingers tightened around the paper. For the first time in years, tears welled in her eyes. Adrian saw them and felt his own throat tighten. He took a cautious step closer, then another, until he was standing beside her. Gently, he placed a small velvet box on the table. Not a ring, but a key. "This is to the house I built outside the city," he said softly, his voice almost breaking. "But it's empty. I realized I can't live in any place that doesn't have your laughter in it. I'm not here to ask for forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that everything I have means nothing without the person who believed in me before I believed in myself." She looked at the key, then at him. There were no grand gestures, no perfect words, just truth, raw and real. For a moment, the fire crackled between them, and the silence was louder than any apology could ever be. Then slowly, she reached out and touched his hand. That one gesture, soft, hesitant, trembling, shattered the silence that had stood between them for 5 years. The tears came freely then. For both of them. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. That single gesture said everything words never could, that pain could fade, that forgiveness was possible, and that sometimes love, no matter how buried, could find its way home again. Outside, the rain stopped completely, and a pale moon broke through the clouds. Adrian stayed there with her until the fire burned low, neither of them wanting to break the fragile peace that had finally returned. It wasn't about rekindling the past. It was about healing it. As dawn approached, he stood to leave. She walked him to the door, their fingers brushing one last time. "Take care of yourself, Adrian," she whispered. He smiled faintly, tears still glistening in his eyes. "I will," he said, "as long as you're happy." And with that, he stepped back into the cool morning air, lighter than he had been in years. Later, as Claire watched the sun rise from her window, she unfolded the letter again and read that single line once more. It didn't erase the pain or rewrite the past, but it reminded her that even broken things could still hold beauty. She smiled softly, a tear tracing her cheek, feeling something she hadn't felt in years. Peace. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Speaks. Every act of engagement helps us spread messages of love, redemption, and hope to others who need them.